With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories.
Pam hints at a possible coalition to dethrone the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party at the next general election.
Let's Recycle in St. Kitts and Nevis continues recycling push for shift in waste management culture. The People's Action Movement responds to recent arrests for firearm and drug-related offences. Another government minister in Grenada has stepped forward with a strong stance in support of relationship between Grenada and Cuba. Sovereign Wealth Fund bill passed in St. Lucia amid calls for greater transparency. Internationally, the European Union delays first tariffs against US to mid-April. Now, the details.
The government of St. Kitts and Nevis, led by Prime Minister Dr. Terence True, surpassed its half-term mark in office, but the opposition, the People's Action Movement, PAM, is anxiously awaiting the term end. At a party's press conference on March 19, 2025, PAM's leader Natasha Shani Gray-Brooks said that the government under the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, SKNLP, will be a one-term administration, expressing a general sense of frustration with the government.
The People's Action Movement will be returned to office after the next general election. We are putting in the work. We are ensuring that we put all the necessary things in place, make sure that our people are trained. We are finalizing some of our candidates, and so we know that this is not going to be an easy walk through the park. But this government that is presently in, this one-term government, will be defeated. I am not going to rest until all the different constituencies join me on this mission to get this failed Labour government out of office. We have suffered for almost 3 years and the people cannot take it anymore. Any sensible, right-minded thinking individual will not vote for Labour the next general election.
Sharing the sentiments of immediate past party leader Sean Richards, Gray-Brooks said that the People's Action Movement is willing to work with other political parties that have like-minded ideas and values for the betterment of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
We have worked with different political parties in the past, even when we had a majority, even when we had 6 seats. We are willing to do that if it is necessary, but it is based on trust. We must ensure that our ideas and our philosophies are not too different, because we are not going to make our people suffer for the sake of joining with anyone. The people matter most, and whatever decision the People's Action Movement makes, it must be for the people.
In a general election in 2020, PAM with 4 seats continued a coalition agreement with the Concerned Citizens Movement and the People's Labour Party to regain power. However, during a snap election, 2 years later in 2022, the People's Action Movement could not maintain its fortune as the coalition team unity fell apart, with PAM winning only 1 seat in the election. The Labour Party's overwhelming 6-seat victory in 2022, with Dr. Terence Drew as leader, aimed to create a more sustainable future for St. Kitts and Nevis. Dr. Drew often touts his administration's accomplishments in office, including relief for the people after the tumultuous COVID-19 pandemic, improvements in healthcare, the introduction of dividends and the budget boost wallet, and the implementation of a child benefit program, Aspire, to help alleviate poverty and encourage good financial health. However, more recently, Dr. Drew faced headwinds from the cost of living increases and inflation that have contributed to election upsets around the world. The People's Action Movement's leader anticipates that the administration will fall after 1 term, as seen in Anguilla in February 2025.
We have worked with different political parties in the past, even when we had a majority, even when we had 6 seats. We are willing to do that if it is necessary, but it is based on trust. We must ensure that our ideas and our philosophies are not too different, because we are not going to make our people suffer for the sake of joining with anyone. The people matter most, and whatever decision the People's Action Movement makes, it must be for the people. But I say this with no water in my mouth. This Labour government just like how the one-term government dropped and fell in Anguilla, Dr. Drew, your days are numbered. Your days are numbered. Try to pack up your stuff nicely because we are ready to take over.
Recycling is essential for small island developing states, SIDS like St. Kitts and Nevis, due to their vulnerability to pollution and limited natural resources. SIDS economies heavily depend on fisheries, aquaculture, and tourism, all negatively impacted by plastic pollution. Due to limited land and resources, most islands lack adequate waste management facilities, leading to waste being burned or dumped into the sea. Recycling programs in SIDS can lead to a circular economy, where materials are used for as long as possible, thus reducing waste and maximizing resource utilization. Furthermore, recycling reduces the need for landfill space and lowers energy consumption associated with manufacturing new products. SIDS need international cooperation for waste management and recycling infrastructure because they cannot often handle large waste volumes. Let's Recycle in St. Kitts and Nevis, a St. Kitts and Nevis solid waste management and recycling project, shared the work that is being done in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis to increase awareness of recycling as a sustainable form of waste management in commemoration of Global Recycling Day, which was celebrated on March 18, 2025. Ambassador Michael Lin, the Republic of China, Taiwan's ambassador to St. Kitts and Nevis, encouraged continued participation in recycling.
Shout out to all your efforts in recycling and make the Federation a more sustainable island state. Recycling is the easiest way we can do to protect our Earth. Every bottle, can, and piece of paper we recycle reduce waste and save resources. Small actions add up to big achievement. Together we can make a big difference. Let's recycle more, waste less, and keep our environment clean.
Valencia Levine, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Climate Action and Constituency Empowerment, emphasized that
recycling is one of the easiest ways you can join the fight to save our planet.
Nevis Island Administration Minister of Health, the Honorable Janelle Nisbet, shared the work being done on Nevis to increase recycling as part of waste management.
Here in Nevis, we've been doing exciting work towards promoting recycling and a healthier environment. At the Solid Waste Department, we've been recycling plastic at an immense rate, and we're moving into recycling metals and paper. So I just want to encourage everyone in the Division public, in the Kittitian public across the globe to get involved in recycling. We have to reduce, reduce, and recycle.
Various participating citizens and residents of the Federation in the recycling project voiced their support and reasons for recycling.
I encourage everybody who thinks to Nevis to recycle. Thank you so much. My name is Nigel Brown, and I'd like to encourage everyone to recycle, keep the island clean, and get a little incentive at the same time. As a citizen of a sustainable island state, I encourage everyone to participate in being sustainable.
It's something that we're willing to have people go around doing that, taking up all the time to water stuff in the drains and on the side of the roads. And at least come up more in terms of educating people about not throwing the plastic bottles on the side of the road or out of the car. I see that happen often, so I think you guys are doing a good job. Keep it up.
SIDS are particularly vulnerable to plastic pollution because they are often at the receiving end of marine debris, including plastic waste from other countries. Plastic pollution can negatively impact fisheries, which are a vital source of food and income for many island communities. The aesthetic and environmental degradation caused by plastic pollution can also negatively impact tourism, a major economic driver for many SIDS. The Taiwan Technical Mission, through the ICDF program, continues to support and advance the Federation's mission to reduce its already negligible carbon footprint. The Reduce, Reuse, and Recycle mantra reminds every citizen that waste matters, and proper waste management remains an environmental necessity and an opportunity to foster a diverse circular economy. Recycling is a cornerstone of the current administration's Sustainable Island State agenda. It is a pillar of collective responsibility with waste management and protects St. Kitts and Nevis for future generations. Recent incidents in St. Kitts highlight ongoing challenges related to illegal firearms and drug possession among young individuals. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has charged several individuals with these offenses. Glenroy Samuel of Connery, St. Kitts faces charges for possession of firearm and possession of ammunition. Both offenses occurred on March 13, 2025 in Connery. Samuel was formally charged on March 15, 2025 at the Bastia police station. Lennox Smith of Keon, St. Kitts, has been charged with possession of a controlled drug, methamphetamine, ecstasy, and possession with intent to supply methamphetamine or ecstasy. These offenses occurred on March 13, 2025 at Ojigut, St. Peter's, St. Kitts. Smith was charged on March 14, 2025 at the Bastia police station. Lavonje Liebert of Warner Street, Keon, St. Kitts has been charged with possession of cannabis with intent to supply. The offense was committed on March 3, 2025 at Keon. Liebert was subsequently charged at the Bastia police station. The People's Action Movement, PAM, has voiced opinions regarding crime, policing, and youth involvement in criminal activities within St. Kitts and Nevis. PAM's deputy political leader, Lincoln David Pell, shared his perspective on crime reduction, emphasizing the importance of equipping and motivating police officers. During the recent PAM press conference on March 19, 2025, Pell noted the broader economic benefits of effective policing.
Policing helps the economy in different ways that a lot of people don't know. When you have reduced crime, a very low crime, businesses flourish.
David Pell believes that arrest numbers should not solely measure police success, but their ability to deter crime.
Police officers are not just to arrest people, but unfortunately, some persons see success of police in the amount of persons they arrested.
He advocated for proactive engagement with young people.
Police is there to discourage persons from committing crime. And for the young persons, there are different programs that can be used and were being used back then, and the People's Action Movement will ensure that the young people will be seeing the police in schools to give them direction in certain things.
He expressed concern over potential resource issues affecting police morale, referencing a situation in Nevis.
It's a sad thing I saw today where I think the police station in Nevis, the police from there might be at risk of being evicted from the station.
He believes economic conditions impact police effectiveness.
However, at this present moment, if the economy is sluggish and slow, if you want to put it that way, then therefore the morale of the police will definitely be slow because they're part of the community and they have to buy things as well. And if things are too high, we have a problem.
David Pell asserted PAM's commitment to empowering law enforcement.
The People's Action Movement, just like back then, will let the police officers have the free reins of doing what they're supposed to do, enforce the laws and not get too much involved in certain things of the police force, because that is what happens as well.
He cautioned against excessive interference from officials that undermine the authority of the Commissioner of Police.
When the actual law surrounding the police force say the police force or the police is a very powerful person, and just want to stay there so we could understand that the People's Action Movement, just like then, will ensure the police do their work, have the equipment to do their work, and whatever laws need to come in place to ensure that is done, we will get it done.
Political leader of PAM, Natasha Gray Brooks, addressed the increasing number of young people charged with narcotics-related offenses. She emphasized the need for heightened vigilance.
In relation to the question about a number of young people are being charged for ecstasy, it requires active monitoring of events, because sometimes we have our police officers out and they are doing necessary searches, but I think too many times a number of items slips through the crack, so there needs to be more increased searches when we have different activities, so as to basically bring it down in terms of the use of this particular drug, because it is very dangerous and sometimes persons don't understand the effect that it can have on them as a person individually in terms of their mental state and how it can affect them going forward in terms of the dependence on this drug.
Gray Brooks advocated for increased surveillance and searches at public events.
We are not saying that we want to invade people's private space, but we want to protect our young people. We want to make sure that they are not harmed. And so it is always good to go out and have a good time, But until we get this thing under control, there needs to be an increase in terms of the searches and to try to help to protect our people.
She highlighted the importance of protecting young people from harm and the potential dangers of drug use. The recent arrests and the perspectives shared by political figures underscore the ongoing concern about crime and drug use, particularly among young people in St. Kitts and Nevis. The proposed solutions involve empowering law enforcement, proactive community engagement, and targeted interventions to address the root causes of these issues.
The phrase "the days are getting hotter and the nights are getting warmer" may sound cliché, but it reflects the harsh reality facing farmers and those in the agriculture sector, forcing them to adopt adaptation measures. But it reflects the harsh realities facing farmers and those in the agriculture sector, forcing them to adopt adaptation measures. This was never more evident than in 2024, when the world once again recorded its hottest year on record. Scientists from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration (NASA) noted that, quote, Earth in 2024 was about 2.65 degrees Fahrenheit or 1.47 degrees Celsius warmer than the mid-19th century average, 1850 to 1900s, end quote. As a result, many regions experienced decreased rainfall, drought-like conditions, and drier landscapes. Agriculture Minister Samuel Duggins acknowledged the challenges faced by the Federation last year. Speaking with WINN FM, he noted that agriculture officials worked to mitigate the effects and even saw some increases in outputs.
Last year is one of the hottest years on record, also one of the driest. And of course, that has significant impact on agriculture overall. However, we were able to mitigate that somewhat through our drought resilience irrigation project. And so last year, we also saw significant increases in a number of our crops, watermelons, cantaloupes particularly, where we would have exceeded 100% of consumption in those crops, and a number of other crops where we would have seen just significant increases from the year before.
St. Kitts and Nevis has struggled in recent years with water shortages, particularly due to persistent drought conditions. Duggins explained that officials are assessing how these challenges are affecting the country's efforts to achieve its food sustainability goals for 2025.
Now, one of the things that we have been gearing up for is really looking at how our programs would have impacted St. Kitts and Nevis by this year, which is 2025. As you would have known, last year we put over 100,000 pineapple slips into the ground. We also put over 75,000 plantain and banana slips into the ground, as well as a number of other crops such as peppers and tomatoes and other short-term crops. What we believe that we are likely to see this year is the productivity of those efforts, and we'll be then able to gauge next steps from here on out, given how productive those efforts have proven themselves to be.
To counteract these challenges, the Ministry of Agriculture, through the Department of Agriculture, is leveraging technology to adapt the most effective and sustainable farming methods.
The whole idea of launching our DRIP program is really a part of adapting to climate change. Also, we've also talked about our greenhouse villages, again, other areas of adaptation. The real thing is that we recognize with less water we must be more efficient. As a small country, we have to be efficient with land use. And also we have to recognize that the sun is indeed getting hotter in terms of its impact on not just agriculture, but the entire planet. And we have to really bolster ourselves to deal with those realities. And our efforts is to be more precision-oriented, data-oriented as well. And we just launched Thursday also our agricultural drone efforts, where we'll be able to now to map soil data, moisture data, as well as to be able to do spraying and other agriculture-related initiatives by means of technology, where we'll be able to do it more precise.
However, unlike many other sectors in the Federation, agriculture remains highly vulnerable to unpredictable weather patterns. As the country prepares for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, these climatic uncertainties continue to pose a significant challenge.
In regional news, another government minister in Grenada has stepped forward with a strong stance in support of relationship between Grenada and Cuba. Grenada Broadcasting Network has the details.
Leaders in the Caribbean are showing a united front against the U.S. government policy, demanding regional leaders distance themselves from the Cuban medical missions or face the loss of their U.S. visas. Finance Minister Dennis Cornwall is the second government minister in Grenada to step forward to say, take the visa if that's what it costs to remain standing with the Cuban people. The U.S. administration announced on the State Department website this expanded policy applies to current or former Cuban government officials and other individuals, including foreign government officials, who are believed to be responsible for or involved in the Cuban labor export program, particularly Cuba's overseas medical missions. This policy does not sit well with Minister Cornwall.
My government has already cited that we are prepared to go to the extreme to make sure that we keep our people safe. So if it means that we have to give up our visa rights to the U.S. to make sure that Grenada stands behind Cuba as one of the countries that supported Grenada in thick and thin. I personally was one of the persons who graduated from Cuba University back in the days and so on. I got a scholarship to Cuba. And as such, I have a moral obligation to support the Cubans in every way. So if it means that the government of the U.S. tried to take away our visas because we support the Cuban initiative, I would say so be it. Yeah.
The finance minister explained the importance of this initiative to Grenada Wednesday morning on the To The Point program.
Cuban doctors and nurses who have visited our shows over the years and perform a valuable service for our people. We complain every day that the service in the hospital is bad. But we have Grenadians who are graduated from St. George Universities, Grenadians, and they are not here to basically support the health system. So if we can depend on the Cuban graduates to basically help the system until we can fix it to a point, I would say so be it. And I'll fully support the Cubans at any time, anywhere, because I think they are doing a very useful and human service to the government of Grenada and the people of Grenada.
In his recent contribution to the 2025 budget debate, Foreign Affairs Minister Joseph Andel shared similar sentiment. He said Grenada has a legal, moral, and ethical obligation to stand by the people of Cuba.
Cuba continues to be a trustworthy friend and partner, not only of Grenada, not only of the Caribbean, but of peoples the world over. When the COVID pandemic broke out, Cuban doctors went as far as Italy to provide services. I didn't hear anybody talk about human trafficking or nothing like that. Were it not for the selfless support of Cuba, many of us would not have had the opportunities for further education that we got.
Andel, also a graduate from Cuba, said the island's healthcare system could collapse if the Cuban medical personnel are removed. Ministers Cornwall and Andel joined other government ministers and prime ministers in the Caribbean denouncing the policy by the Donald Trump administration. Cherry Blackman Stephen, GBN News.
Sovereign Wealth Fund bill passed in St. Lucia amid calls for greater transparency, DBS St. Lucia reports.
In a significant development on Tuesday, the Senate passed the Sovereign Wealth Fund bill aimed at bolstering investments in climate adaptation and sustainable economic development. Despite the bill's approval, Independent Senator D. Lee raised critical concerns regarding transparency and governance during the debate. Senator Lee emphasized the necessity for regulations accompanying the bill, suggesting that even draft regulations could have been made available to legislators before the debate. He argued that the regulations give the details of how the fund will operate in practice and would provide legislators with an opportunity to assess any potential gaps within the bill.
My first sort of raised eyebrow then comes with Part C, which says then to support the development objectives of the government, including the long-term economic and social development of St. Lucia. And the question, obviously, which is begged by this section is whether this is sort of a catch-all, which allows the government, or the board, in fact, I should say, to facilitate investments that don't necessarily fall within the umbrella or the category of climate change adaptation. And obviously, then the question arises, why not have a separate fund to do that? Or if this is the case, let's deal with it in the total, in the round, rather than pushing climate change as the supposed purpose of this bill, but then inserting a catch-all generalized function at the end. And again, as I said, having the regulations might give us a better understanding of how this section is supposed to apply.
The effectiveness of the governance will largely determine whether the fund succeeds in its purposes and benefits the country, Lee stated, underscoring the importance of the board's composition.
The composition of the board includes a corporate secretary. And I heard in another place that there was a deliberate decision made not to appoint a CEO, but rather to appoint a corporate secretary who would oversee, I guess, the functions of a corporate secretary in a traditional sense, as well as the role of a CEO. And I'm hoping that the leader of government business can perhaps give us an explanation for why that decision was taken. Because there's normally a reason why those roles are separated, because it enhances governance. You have a CEO who is responsible for the management of the organization, and you have a corporate secretary who is normally in charge of the governance, and to some extent will oversee some of what the CEO is doing and make sure the records are accurately kept and reported.
The independent senator pointed out that while the legislation mandates various reports, including audits, there are no penalties for non-compliance or delays in submission. Citing the notorious 1MDB scandal where over $4 billion was embezzled from Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund, Senator Lee cautioned that the lack of transparency and accountability played a significant role in that scandal.
There are lots of times where we have, in various pieces of legislation, imposed obligations on members of parliament, and when those obligations are not kept, basically, as they say in local parlance, nothing for that. We are without the information, we are unable to make rational assessments of the performance of these entities, and particularly in a situation like this where I heard again the intended amount is about 8% of our GDP is going to be the sum that is going to form the basis of this fund. When we are talking about such large amounts of money which has been said is going to be our patronage, our legacy for our children and so forth, we need to make sure that the governance structures that have been put in place are operative and operate properly, and ensure that we get information in a timely fashion, and that the persons who are again put in positions of accountability are held to account if they fail to live up to our expectations.
In response, Leader of Government Business, Senator Gideon Ferdinand, acknowledged the concerns raised and assured that the fund has been designed with good intentions. He expressed confidence in its potential to make a positive impact.
It is true that legislation should come with regulations. That is true. But in some cases, the regulations follow thereafter. And in many cases, the regulations may have to be reviewed and changed to reflect the situation at the time. And so I think it is important that while we have come to Parliament to pass the legislation, that the regulations should follow. And he did mention something also about the accountability, what happens with that. I wanted to draw his attention to sections 42 and 43 of the bill, where it makes provisions for a forensic audit to be done. And I think that is a deliberate insertion for the government to ensure that there is some level of scrutiny and accountability as far as how the accounts of this fund is utilized.
While nearly all senators supported the bill, the opposition opted to abstain from the vote. The passage of the Sovereign Wealth Fund bill marks a pivotal step towards enhancing the nation's investment strategy and pressing climate challenges, though the debate around its governance remains open. For the DBS News World, Zane Romulus reporting.
We now bring you these international reports.
We are now considering...
The European Union has delayed its first tariffs against the United States until mid-April. That's according to the European Trade Commissioner, Maros Sefcovic.
This approach would allow us to deliver a firm, proportionate, at the same time robust and well-calibrated response to US measures, while at the same time I could continue with the mission to which I was entrusted by the President von der Leyen to continue talks with my American counterparts, trying to find the solution with them.
The European Commission had proposed reintroducing 2018 tariffs on $4.9 billion of US products on April the 1st, followed by hitting a further $19.4 billion of US goods on April the 13th. These levies are countermeasures against President Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminium, which Šefčovič branded, quote, unjustified.
These tariffs are harming European companies, workers and citizens. And we all know that the EU is clearly not the source of the problem when it comes to steel and aluminium.
The bloc's first set of countermeasures includes applying a 50% tariff on US bourbon, and Trump has since threatened to slap a 200% tariff on all wines and other alcohol coming from the EU if it follows through.
Reciprocal tariffs start on April 2nd.
The Trump administration said it's also planning broader, quote, reciprocal tariffs to rebalance the global trading system. Šefčovič said that while continuous engagement is the best way forward, the bloc will react, quote, firmly and proportionately, if needed.
U.S. President Donald Trump wants the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates now, and he made his view clear Wednesday after the U.S. Central Bank left them unchanged. On his Truth Social platform, he posted, "The Fed would be much better off cutting rates as U.S. tariffs start to transition their way into the economy. Do the right thing." Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said the lack of clarity about the direction of the economy convinced policymakers to keep rates on hold.
While these individual forecasts are always subject to uncertainty, as I noted, uncertainty today is unusually elevated.
Powell added the Trump administration's initial policies, including extensive import tariffs, appear to have tilted the U.S. economy towards slower growth and at least temporarily higher inflation. Fed policymakers still expect the central bank to deliver 2/4 percentage point rate cuts by the end of this year, matching their projection in December, though that is largely due to weakened economic growth offsetting higher inflation, and what Powell called the inertia of not knowing what else to do given the muddled outlook.
Tesla was once a tiny Silicon Valley startup with big dreams to revolutionize the motor industry. Today, it's grown into the world's biggest producer of electric vehicles and a leader in sustainable technology. CEO Elon Musk has been at the heart of Tesla's success, but he's also been a controversial figure, and some of his recent actions are now raising questions about the company's future. With me in the studio is Theo Leggett, our international business correspondent. Theo, we've seen so much on Tesla, who is buying it, who is perhaps not buying it, who's selling their cars if they've got them. Politics and business have collided, haven't they?
They have, and that's largely because of the role currently being played in the US government by Elon Musk. If you step back a bit, what Tesla has achieved in little more than 2 decades is truly remarkable. It was just a handful of people with, as you said in your cue, big dreams. They wanted to produce electric cars and revolutionize the motor industry. Arguably, they've done quite a lot of that. They took electric cars from being seen as pretty uninspiring, mundane, short-range things that you wouldn't want to have on your drive, to being exciting and fun, putting them in the mainstream. I mean, I remember when I first drove a Tesla Model S back in 2012 or 2013, it blew me away because it was completely different from anything we'd seen before. So Tesla has grown massively, and Elon Musk has been a big part of that. He's been the absolute central figurehead of this company, and he has a very loyal following. But what we've been seeing since 2022, when he took over Twitter, now known as X, and much more in recent weeks as he's first of all been part of the Trump election campaign and then one of President Trump's closest acolytes in charge of the government's Department of Efficiency, is that he's become a polarizing figure. He's been promulgating his views on X. He's been standing up for a government that wants to go out and dismiss lots of federal government employees. Some people like that, some people don't. But it's made him into a polarizing figure. And the question is really whether that's been affecting Tesla's business.
And what is the business doing now?
Well, Tesla, in some ways, it's in very good health. You know, the Model Y was the biggest selling car worldwide last year. But For the first time in more than a decade last year, we saw Tesla's sales fall. Now, it wasn't a big fall, it was nothing to panic about, but this is a growth-focused company. Its valuation depends on it growing fast. So it was a bit of an alarm bell ringing there. And then at the start of this year, in some markets, particularly in Europe, we saw big falls in sales. Not, I should say, the UK, that's an outlier. Sales here rose 21%. But across Europe, it was down 45% in January, and we've seen other big falls in February. And there is some evidence that Tesla's brand is being hit by what Elon Musk is doing, how he's speaking in public. Things like, for example, appearing in a video at a rally of Alternative für Deutschland during the German election campaign. That's a far-right group. Some people did not like that. So there is some evidence that people who might previously have bought Teslas are moving away from the brand. But that is not the sole reason why Tesla's sales have been struggling.
What are the other reasons? Because I was going to say, are customers still slightly separating in their heads the allure of what is still a very elite brand, Tesla, and those who are committed to doing something more environmentally friendly when they're driving, to Elon Musk's politics? Because that's a big question, isn't it?
Well, some people are clearly able to separate those two things and have no problem with it. People are still buying Teslas. But if you look at the wider market, there are other factors being involved. So, for example, some of Tesla's model range, which was once groundbreaking, now looks a little bit dated. The Model S has been on the market for an awful long time, so has the Model X. The Model Y has just had a refresh, but, there are mixed opinions about how good that is. Some people may, incidentally, have been holding off buying cars because they knew this refreshed model was coming up. But if there's an awful lot of competition on the market now. If you look at what established car makers are doing, they've been spending tens of billions of dollars on making their own exciting electric cars. And then in China, you have a whole array of new brands. Think of XPeng, think of NIO, think in particular of BYD, that are moving out into the international market and potentially taking market share from Tesla. So there's a lot going on. The market is changing, and Tesla's no longer seen as the way out in front innovator that it used to be. And then when you look at the leadership of the company, irrespective of his politics, Elon Musk has a lot on his plate right now. He's leading Tesla, yes, but also X, also XAI, the AI company, and also SpaceX. There's an awful lot he's doing, and now he's in DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, as well. He said in an interview the other day, in answer to a question, how are you juggling all of this? He said, with great difficulty. So there are some concerns that maybe he's got too much on in order to focus solely on Tesla, and that Tesla maybe could do with new leadership that was more devoted to the company itself.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
Pam hints at a possible coalition to dethrone the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party at the next general election.
Let's Recycle in St. Kitts and Nevis continues recycling push for shift in waste management culture. The People's Action Movement responds to recent arrests for firearm and drug-related offenses. Another government minister in Grenada has stepped forward with a strong stance in support of relationship between Grenada and Cuba. Sovereign Wealth Fund bill passed in St. Lucia amid calls for greater transparency. Internationally, the European Union delays first tariffs against US to mid-April. Thank you for listening.